This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an interview with NASA's Acting Chief of State Dr. Bhavya Lal on NASA's recent achievements and future projects and ISRO-NASA collaboration in space. The interviewer is Pavan, AIR correspondent.
Altimeter data confirms that Ingenuity has performed its first flight of a powered aircraft on another planet.
We can now say that human beings have flown a rotorcraft on another planet.
What you just heard was a jubilant NASA team after the success of the Ingenuity Mars helicopter, which took flight on the Red Planet recently. The year 2021 has been witness to the gloom and distress brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the news of disease and distress from around the world has been punctuated by stellar successes in the field of space from the world's premier space agency, NASA. From the incredible voyage to Mars by the Perseverance rover to the successful test flight of the Ingenuity helicopter, NASA has lifted the spirits of humans around the world with its achievements. Today, we have a very special guest on our show. It is a pleasure and honor to welcome Dr. Bhavya Lal, Acting Chief of NASA, to speak with us about NASA's recent achievements, future projects, and possible avenues of cooperation between India, USA, and the rest of the world in the field of space. Dr. Lal, firstly, we'd like to congratulate you and your team for your recent successes. Going forward, what other spacefaring achievements can our listeners look forward to from NASA?
I want to thank the listeners of All India Radio for their love of space, for supporting space programs all over the world, for understanding how important space is for the success of humanity, not just in terms of our long-term future in the universe, but also how space helps improve life on Earth. In terms of things that I'm excited about, launch of the James Webb Space Telescope, which will look into the furthest reaches of time, launch of missions to asteroids, to moons of Jupiter. I mean, sky is the limit. Well, actually, space is the limit. Infinity is the limit for what we can do. And the benefits are just incalculable. And I really hope that not just India, but countries around the world invest more in our space program. And, space inspires us. We have problems in the near term, and we will always have problems. But, space feeds the soul, and that's important. I'm thankful for all that, everybody's doing to make sure that we stay inspired.
The success of the Ingenuity helicopter was described by one of the team members as a Wright brothers moment in Mars. Could you elaborate for our listeners the significance of this flight? What were the challenges that had to be overcome to achieve this feat?
So Ingenuity was called the Wright brothers moment because it was the first controlled flight ever on another planet. And it's a total feat of engineering. What engineers did was they shrank the size and the mass and worked with very specialized materials to demonstrate flight in a thin atmosphere. And again, as some of your listeners may know, Mars's thin atmosphere makes it difficult to achieve enough lift. The atmosphere is 99% less dense than that of Earth. The first challenge was to make an aircraft that is light enough to be lifted. The next challenge was to ensure that it had rotor blades that are much larger, much faster than what would be required for a helicopter of Ingenuity's mass on Earth to generate that lift. The Ingenuity's blades spin about 2,400 revolutions per minute. And just as comparison, helicopters on Earth spin at about 400 revolutions per minute. And as you can imagine, that to spin that fast takes a lot of energy. And again, you need lightweight materials to provide that energy. So the balance was between having a light enough system and having enough energy, not only to lift the helicopter off the ground, but also to keep it warm enough to perform in Mars's extremely cold climate. And so it was a technology demonstration. We didn't know if it would succeed, but it did. And not only did we fly that one time, since then, Ingenuity has been flying longer and higher flights. It's a resounding success by any measure.
We are all familiar with Neil Armstrong's most famous statement as he landed on the moon, that it was one small step for man but a giant leap for mankind. Now, NASA's Artemis mission seeks to take another giant leap for all of humanity by carrying the first woman to moon. Can you talk a bit more about this exciting project?
So our goal 50 years ago was to prove that humans could land on the moon and return safely to Earth, as President Kennedy said. This time, our goal is to return to the moon in a sustainable way, to get insight, to bring back lessons that will help propel us into a greater exploration that's never been done before. And of course, the part that is nearest and dearest to my heart is that it would be the first person of color who would be part of the Artemis mission that was announced by the Biden administration, part of the mission. So I think the Artemis mission represents a diversity of the American public, of the globe, and it just means so much for those of us out there who will be part of the mission, who will be watching the mission. And, we are showing and seeing for ourselves that you could land on the moon. This is what an astronaut looks like. That's extraordinary. And of course, the other really extraordinary part of the Artemis mission that I am excited about is it is preparation for getting to Mars. All the things that we need to be ready to do on Mars, we need to be practicing those on Earth, whether it's producing oxygen, water, hydrogen, using local resources, or using nuclear power because there isn't enough solar energy on the surface of Mars. So we need to be doing a lot of these tests on the surface of the moon, and that's what the Artemis mission would be doing, and I cannot wait to be a part of that.
ISRO and NASA are currently collaborating on the NISAR project. Could you please elaborate a bit more on this project? What are the objectives of the project? What does it seek to achieve?
One of the funnest things I've done since I have been at NASA is to go to the Jet Propulsion Lab where the mission is being assembled, and it's a collaboration between NASA and ISRO, and it's a joint Earth observing mission between our two agencies. And each of us, NASA and ISRO, are providing separate radars that are optimized in their own ways to allow the mission to observe a wide range of changes that either one could do alone. And I was fortunate that when I went to JPL, I not only saw both the Indian and the United States, the SAR, the radars that are being developed and being integrated. I was able to meet many of the scientists who are working on the Indian side, and it was just so heartening for me to see such an extraordinary collaboration. I think it's NASA's largest collaboration internationally, and the mission will improve our understanding of key impacts of climate change, advance our knowledge of natural hazards, and enable many applications for societal benefits. Obviously, NISAR is only one example of collaborations. There are discussions underway regarding potential activities in earth science and planetary science, heliophysics, and even human spaceflight. NASA remains committed to working with international partners to accomplish these stunning achievements in science, technology, and exploration. And the Perseverance mission to Mars a few weeks ago was another sort of mission with lots of international partners, and it reinforces these strong bonds. And I hope that we will continue to have these international missions, including with India in the coming months and years.
Now, Dr. Lal, I understand that you have a close association with the state of Uttarakhand. Now, you just spoke about the NISAR mission, which is an Earth observatory mission. How can such projects in space help humans on Earth be better prepared to natural calamities like the recent glacial lake outburst, which caused immense flooding in the state of Uttarakhand? Could you please shine some light on that?
The Uttarakhand tragedy was just so close to my heart. Again, my parents have a home in that area, and yeah, it was tough for me to watch the videos and read the news and talk to my parents. And it just kind of reinforced my desire to make sure that space continues to be a way for us to improve life on Earth. So the Disasters Program area of NASA's Earth Science Applied Science program uses Earth observation data and applied research to improve the prediction of preparation for, responses to, and recovery from hazards and disasters around the world. So what happens is that before, during, and after disaster strike, our teams coordinate with decision makers and local governments. They provide actionable data to recover from disaster impacts, and they build resilient communities. Not only that, scientists, and again at NASA and around the world, including scientists in India, use a number of databases to measure different facets of the Earth system, from surface temperatures to humidity levels. So there's a system called the NASA Earth Observation System Data and Information System, which provides long-term data records that can help with climate research. All of it together, the Earth Science Division at NASA and India, Japan, Europe, all of these programs fund innovative applied research to help communities anticipate and prepare before disasters strike. These programs provide data products and expertise to stakeholders, that enable early action, increase situational awareness during response, and aid recovery efforts. So across the board, there's lots of data that NASA and other space agencies collect. I think we need to do more to collaborate to make sure that the data is shareable, there's interoperability, and greater trust in each other's systems so we can really leverage on each of our work and make sure that things happen even faster than they currently do. Use of space, there was a tagline a few years ago called Mission to Planet Earth, and that was all about how observing Earth from space can make so many improvements. Obviously disaster relief is an important area, but just long-term climate change as well. So I'm hoping that we will be able to do more and more of these collaborations going forward.
Dr. Lal, you just alluded to the aspect of bilateral and regional cooperation in the field of space. Space is no longer the sole preserve of the government in recent times. In India as well, we have seen a push towards liberalization of the space sector, and we have brought in several reforms to introduce the private sector into this field. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, pushing humanity farther into the solar system calls for the best of industry, government, and international partners working together. Space is hard, space is expensive, as I just said. And luckily for us, there is growing expertise, not just within government, but in the private sector as well. NASA recognized this expertise very early on, and it transitioned, as an example, the human space flight and cargo transportation to the International Space Station to American private industry. We developed this very creative contracting mechanism so we could fund companies like SpaceX or Northrop Grumman or Boeing to develop rockets and capsules that can take astronauts to the space station. Of course, the one advantage was that in addition to carrying astronauts to space, we are starting to build a strong low Earth orbit economy. It's encouraging competition, it's spurring innovation, and it's driving costs down. It provides a technical and financial boost to the U.S. industry to develop commercial space transportation capabilities. And of course, once we can do better and save money doing low Earth orbit activities, it frees up resources to put the first woman and the first person of color on the moon and ultimately go to Mars. So I think this is a win-win across the board. The private sector has potential for greater revenues. The government has potential to get more out of the money that it has. And as a society, we move forward farther than we would be if it was just one sector or the other focusing on developing technology. So this development, which is underway in the United States and India and Europe, all over the world, is a really good thing. And for one, I'm super excited to see more and more private companies do things in space.
Now, Dr. Lal, growing up, a lot of youngsters harbor aspirations of working in the sector of space, but very rarely do these flights of fantasies ever meet reality. Now, as someone who's managed to achieve that dream, what advice would you offer youngsters who want to chart out a career in space?
That's a great question. And one of the things I like to say is I was lucky, right? I was at the right place at the right time. But how did that happen? And this is something that, this is advice I've gotten over the years that, sure, success is being in the right place at the right time. However, you can ensure that you're at the right place at the right time by being everywhere all the time. So, and I guess the nugget there is that work hard. Perseverance is key. There's a book I read a while back called The Last Lecture by this amazing professor from Carnegie Mellon University. And he offers a number of lessons that I think are crucial to success. And one of them is called the Friday night solution. Basically, Pausch got tenure faster than other faculty members. And, his colleagues and friends said, hey, you got tenure early. What was your secret? And he said, it's pretty simple. Call me any Friday night in my office at 10 o'clock and I'll tell you. And so if there's one thing I would like to say is, science is hard, space is hard, so keep your head down and work hard. Know more than anyone else around you and people will notice.
So in essence, Dr. Lal, what you're saying that to make a mark in space, we need two things in life, which the two rovers which went to Mars had in abundance: curiosity and perseverance. Thank you, Dr. Lal, so much for taking time out of your packed schedule and speaking to All India Radio. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavan. The honor and privilege was all mine.
You were listening to an interview with NASA's Acting Chief of Staff, Dr. Bhavya Lal, on NASA's recent achievements in future projects and ISRO-NASA collaboration in space. The interviewer was Pavan, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.